Welcome back to the Threadheads podcast. I'm just some fucking guy, and today we are joined by the one, the only. We got Flann on the screen, everybody. Flann, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, of course, Zenowi. I really appreciate it, man. This is fun. I've been thinking about this interview for a little bit, especially with the stuff that I've been seeing. People have been asking questions that they want to hear, and
Yeah,
I've been trying my hardest not to just answer it then. So I'm stoked.
yeah, I'm stoked too. We're really gonna ponder those questions. So for anyone watching, we're really gonna ponder them. So for you at home, just stick around to the end because we will do some viewer question. It's fun ones, believe me. So I can't thank you enough. It's really cool to have you here. Um, Episode two. So I'm really stoked. But let's jump right into it. So I want to start to ask. I want to start by asking, when did you actually start making music? When did you get into music?
My dad was or is a choir teacher, so I've kind of grown up around music. My dad put out an album, Tom Flannery. He might be on Spotify, it might just be on CD. And my uncle makes music. When I was growing up, they would invite a lot of people over from a local coffee house in Southern California called, I think it was called Mocha Joe's, like the what is it? What is that? The Curb Your Enthusiasm place.
Oh
But it
yeah,
was like a little coffee house in Southern California, and like Jason Mraz used to play there, and I've actually had Jason Mraz in my backyard back way before he was, putting out the Remedy or anything like that. And then my friend Steve Poltz from Halifax, Nova Scotia, he lived in Southern California. He wrote "You Were Meant for Me" by Jewel, and I was just surrounded by these amazing singer songwriters just growing up. And one day, you have to find music, right? You can't just like, even if you're raised in it, you have to find a moment where it's like, I want to learn it rather than being kind of like forced. So I was never like in like music classes growing up or lessons or anything like that. But then one time when I was like 13, I went to a church camp actually, and I saw some girl playing Everlong on an acoustic guitar, the Foo Fighters song, and I was like, that sounds so cool. I want to do that. So I've been growing up with all these great influences, and I had a lot of resources with my dad, and so I started writing my own music as a singer songwriter when I was 14, and I started Flann as a project in November of 2022. So I was 29 or 30, right around there. And that's when I started recording my own stuff. Because previously I'd just been a guitarist or a bassist or whatever anyone needed me to be. And I'd written my own music, and, I'd been in bands where I was like a writer. But my first real self-produced, self-released project is Flan, and that happened in 2022. So it's been recent that I've been able to be this productive with it, but I've been making music since I was or creating songs since I was 14.
all right. That's really cool. I mean, it's yeah, I love when people start early, really. But so you just started. So when did you actually get into the production side of things?
Yeah, I had downloaded Bitwig like way back in 2015 because I had a bug in my head. I was in Nashville. I just moved to Nashville from Lexington, Kentucky, and I was like, I am tired of relying on other people. I'm tired of relying on like bands to like record. Recording's expensive. I want to do it myself. And so I built a little home studio, and I had bought Bitwig, and I made like four songs, four beats is more like it, like sort of like hip hop inspired beats with some electric guitar that I'd recorded. And that was kind of when I started, but then I sold everything because I joined the military, and I was doing a very difficult scholastic job where they made me a Russian linguist. So I had to learn a whole language in a year, and I needed to sell all my equipment or else I was going to fail because I would have just recorded instead of studied. Uh, And then when I moved to Alaska for my first duty station, I lived there for my entire time that I was in the military, and it just was kind of everything's really expensive to get shipped up to Nashville or to Anchorage, Alaska. So I wasn't able to really rebuild my studio up until I just kind of said, no, no, I need to record this. I'm still thinking about recording all this stuff myself. So I got Ableton Live in I'm now that I'm thinking about it, it was October of 2022, not November. It was October of 2022, and that's when I took it seriously. I started watching YouTube videos. I started learning how to mix. I started making music with the intention of creating a song as opposed to just beats, because I wanted to just kind of be a producer, give it to rappers. But now at that point, I was like, no, 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 I need to create my art, and that so I think October of 2022 is when I really took it seriously, as opposed to use it as like a learning experience or a hobby or something like that. That was when I was like recording is what I need to do, production is what I need to do in order to get my art out there.
Yeah. No, it's so liberating to be able to do everything yourself. And I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. It's
um,
unfortunate because it's a lot of work, but
it is.
you need to do all that work to start off
Yeah. But
before you can get
if you want something done properly, you need to do it your goddamn self. That's
the strides.
so. But yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, so you said you were sort of writing music since you were 14. How do you usually start your writing process if you want to write a new song?
When I was 14, it was like, this riff sounds cool. I'm gonna write lyrics to it. Now the process is a little bit more complex. Usually, I'm very much an inspiration driven writer. I like to have an earworm stuck in my head. I might pull out my voice notes and record something that I'm hearing, and then try to replicate that later. Sometimes that works. A lot of times I'll be searching and I'll hear a sound that I'm like, that is a really cool sound. And like in a YouTube video or something like that, I might rip the YouTube video and then put the sound and sample it and use that as a song starter. I might sit down and just feel like I'm feeling creative today. I'm gonna create. Typically, what I do for songwriting though is the melody comes first for me. I'm very much a melodically driven person. Uh, so whether that be the bass or the keys, I typically build around that. I have done drum beats first, but it's weird for me because then I feel like sometimes the melody kind of like the pocket is created, so my pocket for the melody ends up being like similar, and I like it when it's a little bit more like off sonata asynchronous or whatever. So I like to put out like a melody and then add the rhythm over it to complement it instead of vice versa. So
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I mean, it's you don't want it snapped on the grid. You want to
right.
have it some kind of life. So yeah. No, I kind of the same there. But sometimes if I start with a melody, uh, the rest maybe I kind of come up with a good bass line. I know the techniques to do it, but a bass line I'm satisfied with. If I start with the drums, I kind of find the good chords for it. So it's so yeah, that's why I'm so interested in your process as well because I mean I went through your catalog and my God, you have a lot of songs. And
Thank you.
no, you do. I mean, it's a whole album. I was actually listening along, and I was supposed to take notes, but I was just vibing, so I barely.
Hey, that's
No, it's
awesome. I
true.
appreciate
It's
that.
true. So I think it's one of the songs. I think it's "Baby Girl," where you
Yeah.
have. I think it was the first one I listened to when I saw it on Threads, and I was like, I love that song, honestly.
Yeah. Super Chromatic was the one who produced that song. So the way I met him was kind of cool. I was in Alaska, and I just started, like I got all like the DAW and I was getting into recording, and I'd probably finished like maybe eight songs by that point. I had just finished Spell. Spell was about to come out, and I heard one of his songs off of Shimmer on just like Spotify radio. And my girlfriend was in the car with me and she was like, "This is really good." And I was like, "This is really good." So I, clicked like on the song and I went to the profile and I saw that he had like, no disrespect to him, but I saw he had like 400 monthly listeners. And I was like, "How did this guy get in my algorithm?" That's super dope. I'm gonna reach out to this guy, and I just reached out to him, and I showed him my music, and he was like, "I think I have a good beat for you. Let me send it to you." And they sent me what was at the time called Bubblegum. It became Baby Girl, but it was just that really tight production. I was like, "This sounds amazing," and so I worked with him a lot after that because it was just like he's such a talented producer. He's been doing it for so much longer. We found we're both, he's a veteran, I'm a veteran now. And so we found out that we were both military affiliated. So we kind of have a similar workflow and mindset and work ethic. And we take this really seriously. It's not a hobby for either of us. We're both trying to be professional musicians because it's just something that we had to do. We had a job that was well paying enough. And we were like, this sucks. I need to pursue my art. So it was really cool to find that in another person. And then especially someone who's so talented and someone that I like so much. So Baby Girl just kind of fell together. Uh except for Jorby's part. That I had to find Jorby.
All right.
But other than that, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm
that
glad you like that song is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I love that song. I mean, I've been because sometimes I'm like I noticed that I need to listen to music a few times to get into it and like really, really yeah, really get into the music. And now I've been listening to your catalog probably twice.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, no, it was an absolute treat to be honest. So I'm really happy for you. Glad to
Thank
see
you, man.
glad to see you have so much music out. Now, with regards to the military service, um, are there any of the skills that actually translated to music that you learned in the military that you can actually apply now?
I would say just like I hate to say discipline because it's such a lame answer, right? But really it was like I before I would finish a song but not like do everything necessary. And then it's like when you work where your job sucks and like people are like treating you like shit because that's just kind of what the military is like. uh you get it does inspire you to get your work done. And when you get criticism online, it's like I've been called worse. It's like that. So it's given me a little bit of a thicker skin, and it's given me it's helped me with my work ethic. As far as skills directly to what I did and music, not so much. I did learn Russian. I have been able to work with some Russian artists and Russian speaking artists who maybe aren't like Russian affiliated. Like my friend Arrow Music, who did a remix of "I Want to Be Your Canary." I was able to work with him just because we were connected, and the language barrier. If it gets difficult for one of us, we just switch to the other language. So if I don't know what to say in Russian, I'll say it in English, and if he doesn't know what to say it in English, he can switch to Russian, and I can understand it a little bit better. Grungik, who's a Ukrainian artist. I might be working with him in the future. I need to reach out to him. He said he had something like a hip hop beat that he wanted me on. uh, and he's Ukrainian, but I believe he speaks Russian. A lot of people in Ukraine too. Um, and I did want to pick up that language as well. It's very difficult to learn a full language though, and so I'm not sure if I want to get into that endeavor again, especially if. But that's another story for another time. Yeah, I think that skill has helped me, and then the discipline and the thick skin have helped with music.
Yeah, I mean, Russian sounds pretty hectic, you know.
Yeah, it's a crazy language. They like grammar a lot. It's like case system on case system. There's no word order, so you can just say whatever you want, but as long as you follow the grammatical rules, it's a lot like music in the sense that like when you start learning theory and like there's like progressions that you have to follow. what's hard for Russian specifically, this thing that I struggle with is making it sound natural because a lot like English, where there's like intrinsic word orders for like adjectives and stuff like that. There's a lot of rules like that in Russian. And me as an American learning Russian, I'll say something and they're like, yeah, you sound really dumb when you say it like that. Say it this way instead. So
So when it comes to your writing process, where do you think applying the music theory is the most practical?
I have yet to do it. I'm not a very good music theorist. I'm very much a natural musician, is what my teacher calls it. So I'm in school right now for audio production as well as a music degree called DAW and Technology. It's kind of specifically at my school. Essentially, they're two sides of the same coin. The audio engineering degree is specifically the the technical side of it, and then the DAW and Technology is more of the artistic side of it. So how to create a piece, studying form and function, but using your DAW as an instrument. So like live performance and things like that. So I'm trying to kind of have like a wholesale thought, like understanding of songwriting and recording. And specifically, I'm in my first year. So music theory is I'm on music theory one right now. And we're starting to learn like part writing. So it's like 4-part harmony. And I have yet to actually use any of the musical theory knowledge in my writing process, but my understanding of music and just being constantly forced to do it every day for homework and stuff like that has made me a better musician. So in that sense, it has helped a lot. I think next year I'll be able to kind of describe my own music better and be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh Targeted with what I want to do musically. Um yeah, so I think that it hasn't helped my writing process 100%, but it will.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
fair.
very excited about that.
Yeah, that's really fair. I mean, yeah, for myself, music theory was a game changer for me. I was very skeptical in the beginning, but because I was like, oh, it's just a theory. But then yeah, for me, I understand what works better and quicker.
Sure. Yeah. And then it's just better to, I mean, you have to play music to understand music theory,
Yeah,
in the sense that if you're learning music theory, you often have to practice. And just by practicing and playing, you're becoming a better musician.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it can't hurt. And being able to describe music quicker is so helpful when talking to other musicians, you know?
yeah. And it's just exciting as well because you can always look up chords. Hey, what are some sad chords? Oh, it's in this scale and all that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
that's just adding to the knowledge, really. Um, I understand you use Ableton. That's right? Yeah.
Yeah, I use Ableton Live 11 right now.
So what made you choose Ableton if you had any other options?
Yeah, I had a friend who, so I used Bitwig to begin just because I looked up DAW on the internet and Bitwig was cheap. And I was like trying to do some research, but I didn't really know what to look up. And I was just like, what's a good DAW? And they were like, Bitwig's cool. So I downloaded Bitwig. I've yet to go back, so I don't know how it is, but it felt a little stifling with the audio control, like actual audio files control. So like vocals and like my guitar parts when I would mic my amp were more difficult to control. And I haven't used Bitwig in years. So if I'm saying that and there's a Bitwig nerd listening and they're like, that's not true at all, I'm sorry. This is my impressions, like my first 3 months recording. Okay. But I chose Ableton because I had a friend who was visiting me in Alaska. His name's JVR. He's a really cool dude. And he was like, you got to get Ableton. It gives you a month free trial. Go ahead and download it. So I did. And he was like, you can use my Splice account. We're gonna cook some stuff up. I know you're a musician. We're gonna make some beats. And we made like three, and it was just so much fun and intuitive when you had someone who knew what how to use it, and just like doing the stuff, you watch it happen, you're like, oh, that's really easy. I Some people say it's really intimidating when they're coming from like FL Studio or Logic or something like that. But it being my first like DAW that I really dove into, it's home for me. I really like it. I like how you can edit the audio in the sampler. I like how you can edit MIDI precisely. I like the racks. I've been trying to learn Max recently. That's kind of the thing that I'm into, Ableton Max, and that is insanity. But it's great because it's also a great live DAW. So if I ever want to perform live, I don't have to download an additional DAW and learn it. It's like, oh, this is the DAW that I learned how to record in, so I just need to learn the live features, which that's kind of why I picked Ableton, but it was more of like my friend just showed it to me and why I haven't changed off it yet.
Yeah, no, that's so great because I also found it to be a bit intimidating in the first time you open it, but like then you literally learn something new every time you open the program.
Yeah. It does feel like that sometimes. It is a little dense. You do keep learning with it,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy.
No, it's a lot of fun. It's a ton of fun. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. All right, everybody, we're back with Flan. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Flan is actually the guy that came up with the name Threadheads, which is fantastic. It's such a good name. I I, I remember the options I put up was like absolutely shitty, and I
No,
was
they weren't bad. They weren't bad. I just like things that rhyme. So
yeah, no, that
I
makes
was
sense.
like, what?
It just rolls off the tongue. It just sounds good, you know. Um, so yeah, we were talking about Ableton. So Um, do you have any favorite VSTs that you use, native or external?
So the multiband compressor is like the pinnacle of vocal production in like internet genres like hyperpop and digicore, and they it was so good in Ableton to make that sort of crispy clear, um almost like just brilliance, like the high end, that they made OTT, right, to like so that you could get it in FL Studio and stuff. So I love the multi-band compressor. I love the glue compressor. As far as like native Ableton stuff, there's a lot of the pads that I will use pretty frequently. But for my music being very synth heavy, because I started with like no musical equipment and basically just had like a little keyboard and Ableton, I had to rebuild my whole studio. I used Serum like more than anything. And then of course the I used the Fab Filter Pro Q as well for EQing. I would use the 5 band, the Ableton 5 band, just because it's a great plugin. But I was trying to build a professional studio, so I was like, "What's a professional?" And I got sold that EQ basically by watching a YouTube video. They're like, "You need this," and I was like, "Okay, I'll buy it." I don't think you need the Pro Q. It's a great the FabFilter Pro Q is a great plugin, but I think that I think that the 5 band Ableton EQ is fine. The Valhalla Vintage Verb is an industry standard. I think everyone who likes that, reverby sound uses it. So I use that as well. As far as VST specifically, I spent a pretty big sum of money knowing that I was going to music school. I was like, I need to get a professional keyboard with like weighted keys so that I could practice at home and it not be like really annoying with an actual piano. And I would have to ship it from Alaska. So I was like, I'm gonna get a nice keyboard. So I got the Arturia Keylab 88 Mach 2. Just like tax return came in, and I was like, that's what I'm using it for.
Yeah,
And so I have the Piano V3, and it's just an amazing piano sound. So as far as VSTs go, I would say probably Piano V3, and then Serum are like the two major VSTs that I'm using. I also use Moto Bass, um, for like a VST bass guitar until I actually get a bass. Uh, I would say those three are like the major VSTs that I use in my music.
Yeah, I had the Valhalla Vintage Verb. It's actually the first one I actually paid money for. I was like, it's too hyped up. I have to check it out.
It's really good. Like, and
Yeah,
then there's so many settings too. People will just keep it on the vintage setting, but if you just click over to some more presets, they've got a great plate in there. They've got a great spring. You can find that, and their free version, Supermassive, or
yeah,
the Supermassive Valhalla. Just use that for the trippy shit, and it's you've got all the reverbs that you need. You know,
yeah. No, I use that on all my tracks, both of them. So it's definitely a staple
and
there.
your shit's verbed out. Like your music's
Yeah,
really verbed out. I like how that sounds. I like how spacey it is.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think yeah, that's intentional, of course.
yeah, of course,
I
and
know
it sounds great.
everyone because a lot of people online when you watch the tutorials and such, they say, yeah, one beginner mistake is using too much reverb.
No,
I
it's
was like,
taste.
fuck that. No, not if
Yeah,
it serves the song, you know. So that's the sound I was going for. But yeah, try not to have the mix not too much. And what I also have to realize is what is the reverb actually used for? It's used for depth, and not because it
right.
just sounds pretty. So it's basically where you want stuff to sit in the mix. Um, Speaking of sitting in the mix, something that really stands out to me with your songs and your production is the vocals just sit so fucking beautiful in the mix.
Thank you very much. I
It really
appreciate it.
does. And it's not too much in your face, but it's just enough to catch the attention. Meanwhile, you have stuff going on in the background. So, um, do you use any specific mixing trick to or any others? You don't have to give it away your sauce, but is there anything you want to
I
share?
don't I don't gatekeep. So when I released Spell, the 8 song EP that was kind of like my first thing that came out, I was using like whatever worked. So if you listen to Spell, there's a lot of like hiss, there's a lot of distortion, there's a lot of issues with the vocals in that song. Specifically the song Haunting, when I was going on sort of like the promotion train with it, trying to get people to listen to my music, they would say like, wow, the production's really good, but the vocals just aren't really, pushing it to the next level. And I was like, that's fair. So I took a bit of time to push my vocals to the next level, which you can hear on songs like Real Love and My Verse and Break. And you can hear in Mad Dog and, more of my recent music. And the sauce is as follows. I use the Antares uh, de-esser, but any de-esser will work. So you start with the de-esser. The de-esser will go into a reductive EQ. So I use the Pro Q8 there, and I, high pass it. I try to keep a little bit of the body in my voice, but a lot of times with my genre of music, it's so bass heavy, and there's a lot of mid-range synth and mid-range pads that if you just chop off a little bit of the low end, it's not good. It's not going to kill anything. Then I throw it into like a CLA2 clone, basically. So I throw it into a compressor there. I put it into a what's called like what they call a color compressor, for if anyone. I'll speak, like I'm sure but
Yeah,
in case someone's listening to it, it's like, oh, what is that? I'd rather over explain. So
yeah,
it's a CLA2 color compressor. Then I put that into auto tune. No, scratch that. Sorry. Let me start again. De-esser, EQ, color compressor, then multiband. Then I put it into a multiband. I usually roll my multiband down. I don't have it very high. I have it at like 30%. If you're looking for like digicore hyperpop sound, you want to have that shit turned all the way up to almost 100%. So it's sort of like an EQ compressor. And then I go into auto tune after all of that. After auto tune, which I use Antares, but Melodyne would be fine there. I put it through a saturator. I use the one knob saturator, just the free saturation, but I am going to be saving up. I do want to get Decapitator, the Sound Toys Decapitator. I think it sounds so cool. And I love the overtones that it produces. But right now I'm using the one knob, and the one knob is fantastic. I have it set to like, it starts at 6 o'clock. I have it at like 8 o'clock at most, and I have it to target only the high end frequencies, just to get those a little bit more warmth after it comes out of the auto tune and glosses it over. That way, those frequencies don't sound too robotic, even though that's a little bit of the aesthetic. I do want to add a little bit more warmth back into it. From there, I'll do additive EQ. So then I'll throw on Pro Q, and then I'll turn the highs up just like a little bit. From there, I'm going to be putting all my effects, whatever I want. So like a chorus, then like a delay. If there's like an artistic delay, and I'm not just doing like a send or something like that. Like if I want to do a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put a delay on there. I put it on like a quarter note delay, and then I will turn the feedback up pretty high. I use the Sound Toys Echo Boy for my delay because I really like it. Um, and then I will go in and automate when it turns on. So like the last word of a phrase, and then I'll have it turned off the second that the next verse comes in, just to kind of give like an emphasis delay for vocals. Then if I have artistic reverb, so like if I want a reverb swell or something like that, I'll throw on another vintage Valhalla reverb there, as opposed to using just the send. Then I put two more compressors on it. So the vocals are compressed to hell, just because I want them to sit so far ahead in the mix, right? And then a lot of how I've been delivering my vocals lately have been a really breathy type of vocal. So all this compression kind of is necessary. Otherwise, phrases end up being different volumes. So I'll use the Puig Tech EQ1A, or EP, I think it's EPQ1A, for like for sure. And I usually set that to like the Dean Vox preset, just because I think it sounds really good. And then I put another Puig Tech and then set it to like a track warmer. If it's only one lead vocal, if it's a bunch of lead vocal tracks, I will group all of those together. If there's like a lead vocal and a harmony, I'll group all those together and then use that Puig Tech as sort of like a glue compressor. And then I will group all of my vocals together and then throw two more compressors typically on all of them, usually the glue compressor with Ableton. And then maybe if I'm finding that like at that point I'm getting a little bit of like I'm not hearing the vocals well enough, I will throw another Puig Tech with the track warmer setting on there, just to give it a little bit more warmth yet again, especially in the higher frequencies, because I find that with how aggressively I auto tune my vocals for the style, a lot of that warmth will kind of get out of there, you know. For Real Love, I used a lot less compression, in the sense that I didn't use as many track warmers because I didn't use as much auto tune. So if you're using more auto tune, you need to use more compressors to get that sort of like, especially those color compressors, those sort of like vintage tech compressors, to get that analog warmth. But if you're not using a lot of auto tune, you don't have to. I've been trying to fit the 1176 into my chain, because I hear a lot of people will say that the CLA2 and the 1176 in conjunction sound really good. Uh, so I've been trying to put that instead of the multiband, and then put the multiband as sort of like a group compression thing, like put it on the vocal bus instead of the individual track. But that's just experimentation right now. That is my sauce. That's how I make my vocals sound the way that they sound. If you like how my vocals sound, that is the vocal chain. I would probably take out some compression and just have better vocal performance. But I'm currently recording it right over here in my closet. And so when I record my vocals in my closet, it's not that the room isn't treated. Sometimes the AC turns on and I have to redo a take. It's just not a professional studio. And so really when I'm doing a lot of stuff by ear. And so there'll be a lot of tweaks to that process just to kind of fix whatever is messed up. If I had a like a professionally vocally treated room, I probably would have a little bit more solidified of a system. But that's what I do for my vocals. Thank you for asking me that because I do like I have been wanting to make like a video with just what I do for my vocals because I hear a lot of compliments on it, and I feel like people should know how to compress vocals in my style uh if they're trying to get into that genre, because I think that one of the harder things with internet pop, as I call it, this sort of like indie pop, hyper pop adjacent style, is getting your vocals to sound audible for one over like all of these 808s and heavy MIDI instruments. MIDI being like the frequency, not the MIDI. All, but also to make them not sound just blown the fuck out, completely emotionless, digital. You want to sit somewhere in between in the spectrum. And I feel like I spent a lot of time on my vocal chain where I don't spend as much time on maybe where I should learn maybe a little bit more like tips and tricks, EDM stuff. I feel like I'm spending more time on my vocals for now. And I think I finally found something that works for me. So if you're looking to emulate it, that's how I do it.
Yeah, no, that was the first thing I recognized. Even the first time I listened to your music and the first comment that I wrote on your page, I was like, I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but I acknowledged the fact that I can tell that you've done quite a lot of mixing on the vocals and they sound so good.
Thank
So
you, man.
to
I
me, they don't
appreciate
really
it.
sound over compressed or anything. So that's the thing that's really impressive. Before when you told me the vocal chain, you lost me after the fifth compressor or so. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like a lot of people will be a lot of people are scared of compressors. And I think that what you need to be scared of with compression specifically is gain buildup, but every compressor has a gain knob on it. So if you're properly gain staging your tracks, when you throw on these compressors, you adjust that gain to kind of get the sound that you want. And it's not it, you do having a lot of compressors is cool because it adds some EQ elements to your voice that wouldn't exist naturally. Even if you have like the perfect room and the perfect voice, throwing it through a couple of these color compressors will give it a tonal difference that's going to to change it. Sometimes those tonal differences will add some unwanted frequencies, so you do need those other compressors. So it's kind of you probably could get away with using 3 on vocals and get a very similar tone to mine. I use 5 because I'm extra and I add a fuck ton of vocal harmonies and a fuck ton of layers to a lot of my stuff. My main vocal will usually never be like doubled, at least not that often. But if you listen to some of the transitional elements, they'll be like, as opposed to like risers, a lot of times I'll use like chordal vocal swells, kind of like barbershop quartet would do or something like that. And then I like to do pads instead of like synths. I like to use my voice. Um, Backing vocals, call and response. I try to do all of that because I feel like what makes a lot of pop is the vocalist. Once you have the instrumental, what sets it apart is what the vocalist can do. And like I said, my dad comes from a music, like a choral teacher background. So I think of 4-part harmonies in my head a lot. And I try to put those on my music. So that's why I use so many compressors. I wouldn't say the normal person needs to.
no, but it sounds good. So that's really what matters.
Thank
And
you, man. I appreciate that.
because I mean, I always say what matters is taste. I don't like
Yeah.
some people want extra compressors, some prefer not to. So I mean, if it sounds good to you, that's all that matters. But
If
what
you interview if you interview Patrick Hardy, ask him the same question because I want to know his sauce. And I haven't had a chance to sit down and ask him.
yeah,
And that dude's vocals sound sweet on his tracks. And he said something about using some multi-band compression. I would like to know which ones specifically he's using. So
yeah. So what I want to ask you as well in relation to the vocals and all that kind of stuff. I just get the impression that I mean we spend so much time doing vocals. I mean, I guess most people do, but I feel like a lot of casual listeners just care about the vibe of the song rather than the
Sure.
lyrical content and the vocal chain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about spending so much time on vocals and efforts compared to what the what the listener would perceive, so to speak?
Yeah. My this is really meta, and I'm coming up with this answer right now. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, but my brand, if you will, flann, you know, is me, right? Like my name of the group comes from just my last name. I've found somewhat success from my music by just being as authentic as possible and just trying to sell my story. I did say sell my story on purpose there, by the way. That wasn't a Freudian slip. I'm not. I I want to let everyone know right now that my end goal is to monetize my music. So I am a sellout. I hope everyone knows that off rip. But so like sell my story, tell my story as well. Um, so vocals it is me, like very intimately. So I feel like I spent a lot of that time creating the character that I want to portray. And I'm and not character like flann, but character like the character of the sound, the tone. I want to portray a specific sound uh, that is authentically me and my background, both musically and production wise. So that's why I spend so much time on it, and that's why I spend a lot of time on the lyrics. Sometimes less than. Sometimes it is just about vibes, especially with my more recent stuff. I've been kind of experimenting more in the production side, and I've been experimenting more on the vocal chain side, to where at the point where lyrics have kind of like not fallen off the wayside, but have not been so like my usual intimate poetic type of writing. If you listen to Spell, for example, Spell tells my story. That song was very lyrically important, or that album was very lyrically important to me. Where songs like Baby Girl and which I love that song. Those lyrics were just like this song kind of sounds like an early 2000s pop song, like a Jesse McCartney type song. So I'm just gonna write lyrics like that. And you know, they're legitimate, they're authentic, they're about my experiences, but at the same time, it's not like heart wrenching or something I had to pull out of my soul. It was like I looked over my girlfriend, I'm like, "You're hot. I'm gonna write a song about how hot you are." And so that was just, like Real Love is the same way. It was just sort of like I made this house beat for a project in school, and then I was like, let me just write out some lyrics and about love. And you know, they're again they come from a real place, but it's not as important as maybe like a song like Winter on Spell, which was a very difficult song to write. Haunting was a difficult song to write. I Want to Be Your Canary was actually a really difficult song to write as well, in the sense that like I was putting myself as a character that I grew up with, Vivi from Final Fantasy IX. I wrote it from the perspective of that character, and so that was like our songwriting like challenge for myself. I do that sometimes with my music, and yeah, so the reason why I put so much time into vocals and lyrics is because it's authentically me and what I'm doing. When I don't put as much time into the lyrics, I feel a little guilt releasing the song, but it's still authentically me because as you've seen on, you know, threads and other, I'm goofy. I don't really, you know, I'm just I don't take myself too seriously. There's an inner artist in there that does care deeply, but then there's also like the I'm just trying to have a good time
Yeah.
inside that's like, let's just put the song out as long as it sounds good, because I don't want to put out anything that doesn't sound good.
No, of course, and I mean, I we all take ourselves way too seriously as musicians. I get. I
Sure.
mean, so it's kind of refreshing to see us being silly as well, um, and it's fun to be silly.
It is fun to be silly. I love it, dude. It's
Um, do you? So does the music inform the lyrics in many cases, or?
absolutely. Actually, I Want to Be Your Canary is a great example of that. That song came from me working with this online producer that I met on Reddit. Actually, someone was posting on the audio engineering board, the slash r audio engineering, and they were like, "Hey, I'm looking for hyper pop artists. I can't find any. Where do I find these people?" And I really just messaged him because I hadn't really written too much yet. I had written maybe like 4 or 5 songs, and I was really focusing on that hyper pop sound at that time. So I messaged him and I sent him my early demos, and he was like, "This sounds really good." And then he sent me the beat for Makima, which that became a song. And then he also sent me the beat for "I Want to Be Your Canary," and I heard it, and it was just immediately put me into the mind of like this little fantasy black mage from Final Fantasy, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta write a song like this. So yeah, the music certainly informs the lyrics most of the time. Sometimes I do like a little bit of a bait and switch, if you will. I think Haunting was like that. Haunting is very much like a high energy Jersey club song. And I was like, what if the lyrics were really depressing? And so I just wrote about something that was, sort of difficult for me at the time. It's about like my previous relationship, who was living with me at my house, had moved out, and I was often finding like things of hers in my house, things that I've reminded me of her. And it was like my house was haunted because I was keep getting haunted by the ghost of my past relationship. So I wanted to take that theme and turn it into a song, but I didn't want it to be super sad because like we it's fun to be silly, I don't want to be. I like sometimes you want to have a song that's sad and just so crushingly sad that you make someone feel a certain way. Other times you just want people to know what you're talking about, but the song is more of like, here, check this out. So that's kind of how Haunting happened.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I think it's nice to have some contrasting, like happy music, sad lyrics, or the other way around. I've always been on the impression that people cared more about lyrics because that's the easiest thing to understand in a song. If you just
Sure.
listen, and I
Yeah.
remember always looking at the lyrics and I was like going, "Oh, holy shit, that's so deep." Or maybe it's something not that deep, but it just sits right perfectly in the
Yeah.
song.
It's
Just
just relatable. Right.
yeah, relatable. Sometimes just profound and just something super ordinary. Um, so yeah, no, that's really cool. That's
Lyrics were also really important to me, especially growing up. I mean, like I'm wearing a Say Anything shirt. They're a emo band from the early 2000s that were very artistic in their songwriting, and I took that to heart. So I try to do that often. Sometimes it's not that important, like I was telling you earlier. Sometimes the song calls for something a little bit more lighthearted, but it is important to me to when the song calls for it, really dive in and be as authentic and real as possible with some wordplay and try to be clever or whatnot.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. I mean, it's I don't know. I try not to be too clever. I mean, it's I would take pride in being clever, but then I don't know. I don't think being trying to be too clever is very relatable to people.
That's true. Yeah, sometimes you
But
can alienate
yeah,
your listener just because like, oh, why did he use such a stupid word? Like you could have just said something really easy there.
but then again, I mean, authenticity comes first. So,
Very
and
true. Yeah.
I'm not. I would never rewrite something that is too clever because I think it would annoy anyone if it's really authentic to me.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Um, so do you have any other like favorite mixing tricks?
Uh
And
oof. Yeah. What do I do that I like? Transitional elements is something that I'm really focusing on. Drum fills, risers, vocal fills,
yeah,
moments in the form where you change from like a verse to a chorus or even repeating something. It can get really boring. So in my music class, the one thing that my teacher told me is that if you're going to change where you're at in the song, so from verse to chorus or from A section to B section, however you do your music, there needs to be at least two elements added or at least two elements taken away. And they need to be very pronounced elements. It can't just be like, okay, now I'm going to add the hi hat here. It should be like, here's the hi hat and the snare and the kick are all coming in at the same time. There needs to feel like you're moving from the next part of the song. And to aid with that movement, the transitional elements are important, whether that's a pickup note with like another instrument, like one of the major instruments being added. Maybe there's a guitar, there's like a little pickup lead, uh, or drum fill. Drum fills, I think, are the most traditional ways that we kind of just make that happen with like the band setting. But if you're an electronic musician like myself, it's kind of annoying to program a drum fill. Just use a riser or some sort of sound. Sometimes I like to use like a really pitched down, just sort of sound that's like a tone that's within the key of the song, and you don't really notice it, but you can feel that unless you're really listening for it, you can feel that sort of transition. And that's what I've been really working on right now is sort of like production form, song form. I think that I've gotten hang of it. I think that Mad Dog is a great example of that, where lyrically I was just kind of like, my buddy had paid me to write a song that was kind of goofy. So I was like, okay, I'll just write a song that's kind of goofy. And then I spent a lot of time making sure the form of that song was really, really good. So for the future, I'm going to take what I learned from that and then kind of reapply sort of like depth to it, like musical depth, knowledge depth, lyrical depth. Uh, but if you want to hear like what I think is a pretty good case in form, I think Real Love and Mad Dog are both great songs for that to even like what I learned from my teacher, I put directly into those songs. So if you're looking to become a better producer like I am being in music school for it, you can listen to those songs and use them as kind of like a case study of like what my old shit sounded like, and then those songs are like, oh, I do notice the difference in this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, no, that's fantastic stuff. I mean,
so
it's
it's sorry, that's not a good mix trick. You asked me for a mix. That's not like a
no,
really
it's songwriting. It's the same thing. So I think people always struggle with songwriting to some extent. And I mean, what I had to learn was like produce then reduce. You
sure.
know,
Yeah.
to make like B sections and stuff because my early yeah my first song is a bit eight loopy, so to speak. But I
I
like to
like it though. I like it. Sometimes the song calls for it, you know?
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And I think it's actually served the song. And I mean, especially when you get a few drum fills is my favorite thing. That's what really brings life to that track. And I mean,
Yeah.
I spend so much fucking time to make it sound like a real drummer, even panning the fucking toms and and all that kind of stuff just to
That's dope.
yeah. And even the one thing I really love as well in Ableton is actually put the drum kit in key,
Yeah,
which
I try to do that too. I try to make sure to make my samples pretty in key. I think that in Mad Dog, specifically the kick drum is the same note as the 808. So I pitch the kick drum every time the kick drum hits.
yeah.
So I totally feel that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Um, let's see. I, I know you love anime,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if you can make a soundtrack to one of your favorite animes, which one would you choose?
Oh man. Holy cow. That is a great question. Uh so I wrote the final song on Spell is called Crybaby. That song's about Devilman Crybaby. Um I think I don't think it'd be so hard, right? Because like to do a soundtrack for an anime would be really difficult. I want to say immediately off the top of my head FLCL, but the Pillows already did it and it was really really good. I would never be able to do anything like that. So I would have to pick something a little bit different. I'll go ahead and say Devilman Crybaby because I like hardcore music and I think that you could throw in some metal there. And I also like rap, which in the anime there's a lot of like there's like a recurring character is like a beatboxer and another guy who's rapping that behind him. Um and it's one of my, it's short too, so the project wouldn't be ridiculous or anything like that. You wouldn't have to do like 500 episodes of soundtracking. I think I would pick Devilman Crybaby. That's a really great anime. And I feel for the story of like this sort of like, it's like a coming of age mixed with corruption, mixed with end of the world. And I feel like as most people's experience with their coming of age, becoming a teenager, becoming an adult, and so on, is the gradual corruption of what they thought as like morality as a kid. Everything's so simple, high fantasy thoughts of morality. There's black and white, like there's evil and good. And then all of a sudden you become a teenager and you're like, oh, there's a lot of gray, right? And that sort of gradual corruption is traced very elegantly in a literal corruption of the world in Devilman Crybaby, as like more demons come out and Devilman becomes more and more devilish. So I do like that element of it, and I think I could do something with it on that. Plus, I already have a song, right? I already have one song completed, so I could just throw that at the end where it fits.
Yeah, that's great stuff. We're gonna take another break, and we'll be right back with some viewer questions for flann. All right, welcome back to the Redheads podcast with flann. So now for the viewer questions, this is going to be exciting. So Rune Stomper had a fun question. So, and we're going to ponder this one. Would you rather chug 1 gallon of ketchup or tongue kiss a shrimp for 5 minutes?
I've thought about this one. I thought about this one when I saw it. I would rather have the shock value of knowing it now, but I couldn't help but read what people were going to ask. But this is the only one that I really like took some time to think about. So tongue kissing a chimp is a horrible idea on so many levels.
Yeah,
Morally, ethically, assuming the chimp is consenting to a tongue kiss, you are looking at chimp teeth to like chomp down on your tongue, and the thing can just rip you. If you are given like a, if you're kind of dead fishing the kiss, he could just rip your arms off, right? Like
yeah,
that's not a good idea, right? And I have taken, in the military, we used to do like gross shots, as like pour a shot of vodka and then do something gross to it. And I've taken more ketchup shots than your average person. So like 2 ounces of ketchup, 1 ounce of vodka, like a lot of ketchup, not like a normal amount. And I could do it. I like vinegary tomatoes. So I know that a gallon of ketchup is a horrible way to, well, really at any point in the day, a gallon of ketchup is horrible. But I would pick that over the danger to my life, limbs, and just face area that making out with the chimp for 5 minutes would be. So I'm gonna drink the gallon of ketchup, and I'm gonna try not to throw up, but I would definitely pick that one over 5 minutes of life threatening interaction with a chimp.
yeah, because those animals doesn't fuck around.
No, it doesn't fuck around. Yeah, exactly.
They do not fuck
Exactly.
around. That's for damn sure. It's like, yeah, no, if I saw a shrimp, I would run the other way.
Right.
It,
Like even like I don't get like the whole petting zoo. Like in some countries they'll like have like exotic petting zoos, and it'll be like an ape or something like that. Like you can go in and like interact with the ape. Get me out of there. I don't want to, like,
yeah,
I know my urges when I see something I don't understand as an ape. If I saw something, it's like, oh, look at that. It looks like me, but it's completely hairless and wearing weird things on its clothes. I don't understand that. I'm going to beat the hell out of it. That's what I think immediately. This chimp is wants to kill me immediately. And so, yeah, trying to become intimate with a chimp for any amount of time just sounds horrible. That being said, if I had developed a relationship, not that I would make out with the chimp. No, hold on. Let me pause that. Being like developing a relationship and like becoming friends with the chimp, like Coco and Jane or whatever, that's one thing. That's beautiful. That's amazing. That's nature. But yeah, me just cold walking into a room and you're like, you got to make out with that chimp. I'll fuck you, give me the gallon. I'm drinking that ketchup.
Yeah. No, 100%. And they're fucking vicious animals too, you
Yeah,
know.
they're vicious animals.
Yeah. No, I mean, good luck even getting close to it. They will catch you before you. Um, so we're gonna continue with a question from our good friend Mainframe.
Okay,
If you could own any guitar, like a dream guitar, which one would you pick? Like a Gibson, Fender,
sure.
Ibanez. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Right.
I This is a hard one. I had an amazing Les Paul way back in the day, a Gibson Les Paul. This is
Mm.
my dad. This wasn't mine, but I was like 14, 15, and I was learning guitar. Dad was like, plug in this thing. You can play an electric guitar. So I really like the Gibson Les Paul. If I had to pick someone specific, their guitar, I want Brian Setzer's Gretsch. It's like this big, or I actually have it tattooed on my side. I'll show you. It's this big orange guitar that has like an F hole in it. And it's just one of my favorite visual guitars that I've ever seen. And I just love how his sounds, and it has such a good story. It's been stolen and then like returned to him before. It's been broken in Japan, like the neck completely broke off, and like it flew out into the audience, and an audience member like returned the neck at the end of the show, which is crazy because he was saying in the United States that would never happen. They were like, oh, I just got this extremely rare piece of equipment. But apparently in Japan, they have a lot of respect for personal property. So they returned it back to Brian, and he was able to repair his guitar. So that guitar, just because of the history, would be my dream guitar. But functionally, I don't think a Gretsch Electromatic would be something that I want to play, just because it's got a lot of moving parts. Quite literally, like the bridge is oftentimes floating on it. If you hit it too hard, you can knock something down. Um, I think the newer models all have the Bigsby tailpiece, so it's not a floating bridge anymore. But the point that I'm trying to say is like there's a lot of things you have to think about with that guitar. It's more of like a country guitar or like a jazz guitar. And with my genre of music, I don't know if it would fit. I would love to play one though and figure it out, see if that would help. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's nice. That's really nice. We got a couple from Brenna Men's. Um, she asked, maybe I missed this at some point. Where did the name Flann come from? And
Yeah.
why did you get rid of the cute Flann picture you had back in the day?
So Flann is my last name. Flannery.
Mhm.
My dad was always called Flann Man growing up. When I was in the military, people just called me Flann because it was easier. And when I created the project Flann, what I wanted to do was be authentically me, no longer just the guitarist. But I didn't want to be, so I'd gone previously by my full name, which is Dylan Thomas Flannery, and that was like my musician name. It was like as a singer songwriter, uh, this is Dylan Thomas Flannery. This is Dylan Flannery, and that's fine, but it's long and it doesn't fit in like today's market. So I kind of wanted to stylize it by just going like, oh, this is my nickname. This is what people call me. This is what everyone calls me. I'm Flan. And then I made the F lowercase and the period at the end just because it looks cooler, it looks internety, and it kind of fits the electronic style of music that I do. As far as the logo, I'm trying to find my brand still as far as like visual stuff. I am also wondering where it went, in the sense that like I'm going through the desert and we're all trying to figure it out together. So I had a friend make it a while back, and the friend and I had a bit of a falling out due to some stupid drama that I did. Like I don't dabble in drama, and so the second that I see it, I kind of am just like hands off. And maybe that was the reason why our relationship degraded, was because I was very hands off. And I didn't want to continue using the logo that they had made, because if I had used it for particular branding in the future and they decided to make like a stink of it, I just rather cut all ties when something like that happens. So I'm still, I do like that there's sort of like flan being my last name is also a Mexican dessert. But I want to continue to kind of play into it being me, as opposed to it being, like this cartoon dessert, which I don't think is a bad logo, and I think that again that was amazing work, and I really liked that. But it did I didn't want to continue using it out of respect for the guy who made it, and I didn't want to continue using it because I want it to be me and not some cartoon.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair enough. I have a follow-up question to
Sure.
your name. Did you ever consider DTF?
Yeah, so my initials are DTF.
I
They
find that
have
so
been, they
hilarious.
have, I've, it's really funny when people like realize it, when people learn it, and then they're like, holy shit, wait a second. And I'm like, yeah, that's, I, it's very funny. I don't think it was a phrase when my parents named me,
Yeah,
back in 92, in 1992, but it may have been, and maybe they knew about, they didn't think about it. So it's very funny.
yeah, it is. Um, we got one from Big Snow Illest, 98.
Snow day.
Why
What do you,
did
sorry, what was the, what was the question? I interrupted you. My fault.
no worries, no worries. This one is from Big Snow Illest. So, why did he turn evil?
Oh, yeah, I was this is kind of hard to talk about. It's kind of recent. I was kidnapped by some guy who looks a lot like me. It was really weird.
Hmm.
I don't know where he came from, but he kidnapped me and brought me to Florida. I didn't go evil. It's some other person, and he was able to hack into my Threads account. That was the only one he was able to get onto. He wasn't able to get onto like my Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. I'm not sure how he was able to do Threads and not Instagram, but he didn't. And yeah, he decided to take over my account for a little bit. But that was someone completely different. I did not turn evil. I know that's a confusing misconception. But yeah, I'm sorry that that happened. I've since added an authenticator to my Meta account, so that shouldn't happen again. And hopefully we never see that man ever again. Once I was able to escape, I haven't heard from him since.
Fair enough. Did you get any like number plates or anything off this
No,
cat?
he took my car. He got my brand
Oh,
new car and he took it, but he had returned it. He kind of disappeared without a trace. I uh I made a joke about putting him in a pocket dimension, but I'm not a wizard. So I wasn't able to actually do that. The guy just disappeared and I don't know what happened to him.
yeah, it feels kind of stupid to kidnap a former military as well, in my opinion, because you
Yeah,
never.
well he's from Florida. They're built different.
Oh yeah,
So they're scary out there.
yeah, yeah,
It's the American version of Australia. It's just crazy out there. Animals just, strewn about,
yeah,
tigers
yeah,
and crocodiles. Scary down there. So
yeah.
if anyone could do it, a Florida man could.
Yeah. I'm glad you're safe. And I'm glad you're back.
Thanks, man. I'm glad too. It was a hard time.
Yeah, we were worried there for a minute, for a good minute, I would say. Um, so and we have one last one from my given name. It's a I don't know if it's a reference to something or it's a bit whimsical. When did you know, and are you sure about that?
Hmm.
I think it's a reference to some show.
I figured it out.
Between Two Ferns is a reference from.
Sure. I figured it out, and I've always been sure. So that's my response. That's my response to that.
No, that's a perfect response. So I think I think I'm very happy with everything. So
Cool. Yeah, this was really fun. I really appreciate it.
yeah, I had a ton of fun. So and thank you so much for your time, Flann. I really, really
Of
appreciate it.
course.
So, I'll be stoked to have you on further down the road as well.
Yeah,
Once,
I would love to. I would love to do this again. That'd be super, super dope. Especially after I've learned some more stuff. I would love to, check in every once in a while and give
yeah,
any secrets that academia has given me. Because
mm,
yeah, it really is annoying that you got to pay so much to go to a music college.
yeah,
So I got lucky with the way that the American government works, and I was able to get this college through my me giving up my time in the military. So if I can give back to anyone else, I would love to.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So, and to everybody at home, this has been the Threadheads podcast. That's Flan. I'm Sinui. Thank you so much for watching.